Hello, everyone. Welcome to DAGS. Hopefully, everyone's had a chance to come on today. I'm Kathleen Warshawski. I'm president of DAGS. DAGS is the Dallas Area Gerontological Society. We are all about education, advocacy, and scholarships. We have a monthly educational program. It is the third Thursday of every month, and it starts at 3 o'clock. When we're in person, we start at 2:45, and we will let you know when that happens again. DAGS is made up of its members, and this picture is a photo of some of the attendees of last year's annual Fall Forum, which we're going to talk to you about in just a minute here. So this year's annual Fall Forum is on October 14th and 15th. On the 14th, we just have a small networking event, and on the 15th, we have our full day symposium. We'll have 5.75 continuing education credits for nurses, social workers, LPCs, and assisted living administrators. So hopefully I got all of that correct. We would really like to thank our sponsors. Without their generous support, we would not be able to fund our scholarship program. And we give anywhere from $16,000 to $19,000 in scholarships a year for the last 6+ years. And so thank you very much to all of our sponsors. Our diamond sponsor this year just came in today. And so we'll be updating this slide to be a little bit better. But we do thank Wellbridge Healthcare for being our diamond sponsor. We thank Garland Behavioral Hospital and Acapella, a Caring People Company, for being our platinum sponsors. We thank our gold sponsors, Highland Springs, Senior Helpers, McNair Dallas Law, CNC Home Care, Ventana by Buckner, the Preston of the Park Cities. And we thank our silver sponsors as well, Apple Care and Companion, Belmont Village, Distinctive Life, Forefront Living, VNA Hospice, Home Instead, Right at Home, and Home Care Assistance and Christian Care. I had all of these Zoom photos in my way, so I wanted to make sure that I got all of those. We've got a lot of fun things planned for the forum this year for you. I want to just go over our forum agenda so that you have an idea of who some of our speakers will be. We have our Dementia 2020 update with Dr. Heidi Rossetti. She's an assistant professor at University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. We have our COVID-19, what we've learned and where are we now, with Dr. Philip Wang with UT Southwestern Medical Center, and he is also the Dallas County Medical Director. Advancements in Telehealth with Dr. Brett Morin. He's with Parkland Health and Hospital System. He is the Chief Medical Information Officer and the Associate Chief Medical Officer. We also have our healthcare disparities and access to care. We have several of our speakers for that are DAGS members. So we have Dr. Amin, we have Shannon Gore, we have Ashley Rodriguez, and our own Susan Rogers will also be moderating that session. Social Determinants of Health is Dr. Jacqueline Naeem, and she's with the Parkland Center of Clinical Innovation, and she is also the Senior Medical Director and Program Director of AHC. And then finally, our last speaker for the forum will be on trauma-informed care in the wake of COVID-19, and it's all about our mental health. And we have Karen Zigerfuss, and she is a social worker, licensed clinical social worker with Ranch Hands Rescue Therapy. Each of you should have received an invitation to register for the forum. There's several ways that you can do that. The first one is by going to the registration page here, putting in the number of tickets, and then clicking on the register button, and there'll be a number of questions and a way to pay your dues there. You can go to the Whova app, and you're going to want to download the Whova app to your desktop as well as to your phone. They have different functionality when you're on the phone and on the desktop, but it'll also make it that those of you who are on the go the day of the forum will still be able to listen in through your phone app. Excuse me. I have a picture of Barbara Glass. Susan, you might have to take over.
We have a picture picture of Barbara Glass there with Kathleen. Is for at least the second year in a row, if not more. Barbara was the first person to register for this year's DAGS Fall Forum. So thank you so much, Barbara. We appreciate your support, and we wanted to recognize you in that way.
I just want to go over to here.
Kathleen, I always get a tickle when I have to talk on these meetings.
I know.
Too.
So I just wanted to share what the event website looked like. And Susan, if you want to talk again about it.
Yes, so this is the desktop version of the Whova app. You can see the name up there on the left corner, WHOVA, and you should have seen in your invitation, there was a link. You can also go to dags.org and link to a place where you can register for the event and also download the app. So there'll be an app for your desktop as well as a mobile app. And through that, you'll be able to have access to the speakers, the sponsors, the exhibitors, all the sessions, and all of the other people who've registered for the event. So it's going to be really great because now you can actually start networking with people. You can contact them through the app and make connections. Really, as soon as you register, you can start doing that.
Can you still see my screen?
I do.
Okay, so this is where you go in on the web application and you're able to send messages to different people who are attending the forum. You can start doing that now. You can actually start looking at the sponsor and exhibitor booths so that you can see who's there. And again, you can start to learn more. You can send them your information and get connected in there. There's ways to send questions to our speakers, and you can start sending those questions now through the session Q&A. So if you have a question, for example, for our healthcare disparities, access to care panelists, you can actually go in there, you can see what questions have been asked, and you can enter the question that you want them to address. And then if we have those questions ahead of time, we can try to fit those into the speaking piece of the program. And then someone has sent me a message. You can visit the exhibitors, you can view the agenda again, learn more about the speakers. And also with the attendees, let me find someone's here. But with some of the attendees, you can actually, if they've populated it, let's see if she populated it. So you can actually go in there and put in your bio, and you can even put in your LinkedIn profile link so that people can get to you that way. I'm not sure if I did it or not. Yes, you can put in your web pages and everything.
So it's really a great way to connect with one another. And what's really great about it is you can start now. You don't have to wait until the day of the forum or the day before. A couple of points that I think you made, but I just wanted to touch on again was the funds that we raise through the DAGS Fall Forum all go to sponsorships. And sponsorships, I'll go to scholarships. And so every year we've been able to give recently, the last few years, over $10,000 worth of scholarships to area students. And we really feel like this year especially, it's clear that we need more strong candidates going into the aging field. And so we're just so pleased that we're able to sponsor these students, some of them, you know, just entering their education path and beginning, and others who are seeking advanced degrees, PhDs and such. And so it's kind of exciting to see and kind of help them along their path and know that in the future, we're going to have, you know, really strong, well-educated, compassionate and passionate people in our field to help our seniors. So the other thing to mention is when you register for the DAGS Fall Forum, part of what's included in your registration is your annual membership. So the annual membership is $30. The registration for the forum is $60. And so it's really a great deal. So we hope we'll see you all there and you'll register today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan, for helping with that. I appreciate it. Now, some of the disclosures. Just want to let you know, to get your continuing education credit today, you must register via Zoom and attend the entire webinar presentation. You'll need to complete the evaluation tool that should pop up automatically on your screen within 24 hours of the event ending. And that means it should pop up within 2 minutes of the event ending, and you have 24 hours to complete it. So if you don't have that evaluation tool by 5 o'clock today, please email me immediately so that we can get that to you and get everyone their certificates. We like to process everything all at once, so you will get your certificate via email by the end of the month. If you don't have it by the last of this month, please email us. If you didn't do the evaluation, you're not getting a certificate. So make sure that you get that completed. Conflicts of interest, we have none to report. Commercial support, there was none received for today's program. And none of the sponsors for today's program had any influence on the content that our speaker is going to present. And now I will have Kirsty introduce our speaker for us.
Absolutely, and thank y'all all for joining us today. We are in for a special treat. I am so excited about our speaker today. Before I introduce her, I do want to let everyone know that the meeting for next month will be the DAGS Fall Forum. So do make sure and mark your calendars for October 15th, because it's going to be a fantastic event, and Susan and Peggy and Kathleen have really worked so hard on it, and thanks for all of our sponsors. It's going to be a great event. We're really excited about it. Now I want to introduce our speaker today, Farahana Kazim. And I know, Farahana, I am saying it incorrectly, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance. She's the author of the children's book, Doing and Being, a mindfulness book for children and parents. She is also a certified mindfulness coach and public speaker. She began her journey exploring mindfulness during a very uncertain time in her life, her divorce after 7 years. Over the last 5 years, she has been teaching people how to face the world with curiosity, awareness, and intention, especially during uncertain times. Farahana was born in Vancouver and was raised in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm sorry, I know I said that one wrong too. She speaks 6 languages, unbelievable, 6 languages, and has extensive experience bringing mindfulness to children and adults in school settings, cancer patients and caregivers in hospital, and in nonprofit settings, and parents and children in church settings. She's very, very busy. Her greatest pride and joy is her cute, precious son. I can say that because I've seen him on Facebook. He's adorable. Her 9-year-old son, Eli. Eli, thank you. She lives here in Dallas, area with her mom, her son, and of her fur baby, golden doodle, Max Powers. So too bad Max and your son are not on this call with us today. They make me happy just looking at them on Facebook. So with that said, Farahana, we are so thankful to have you here with us today, and we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kathleen and Kirsty and Susan and all of y'all for joining us. And I'm so glad to be here and to share all of what I know about mindfulness. And we're open to questions, so if you have any questions, please feel free at any time to just put your question down in the chat box, and Kathleen can help coordinate those questions coming in. And if you want to raise your hand, use the raise hand feature as well. That will be fine too. So let's go ahead and begin. Sorry, Kathleen, I'm tapping. I'm not sure why it's not going on to the next slide, but there we go. So wherever you are in your home space or your office space or wherever you are right now, I'm just going to start with a brief grounding activity. And so wherever you are, sitting on a chair, or maybe if you want to sit on the ground, just be sure to be comfortable. And I'm going to invite you in this moment to lay your hands gently on your lap and slowly begin to close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, just allow yourself to be in this present moment. Be in observation of this present moment by simply bringing your attention to your breath. Notice in this moment the flow of your breath without any need to change or control or alter the flow of it. Simply just observe. Notice if it's fast or slow. Notice if it's deep or shallow. Simply just observe with curiosity and awareness. You may notice wherever you are any sounds in the background, in the room that you're in. Perhaps you may notice some thoughts that sneak into the mind. Perhaps sensations in the body. Whatever is going on that you become aware of, simply just become aware. And see if you can notice whatever comes up for you in your experience. And as you bring awareness to whatever that is, once you become aware, gently bring your attention back to your breath and begin once again to notice that flow in this present moment. At this time, I invite you to take a deep inhale through your nose. Exhale slowly and deeply out through the mouth. And whenever you're ready, you can slowly begin to open your eyes. Welcome back. I like to always begin the presentations with a moment of stillness where we are really taking in the present moment experience, whatever that may look like for you. There's no right way or wrong way, but just through observation, bringing awareness to the breath, bringing curiosity to the experience, without needing to judge whether you're doing it right or wrong, judge the outside world, whatever's going on around you. We don't need to do any of that. We simply just want to observe. And just for a minute, if any of you want to share or put in your chat box what you kind of noticed in the moment, we'd be happy to just get in on your experience a little bit. Did you feel relaxed? Did you feel stressed out? What was the breath like when you first began to notice? Did the breath shift a little bit? I see relaxation. Maybe you noticed that the breath was fast and then it turned to be a little bit more gentle and still and soft. Breath became deeper, Alexander is sharing. Thank you. Alicia was feeling relaxed. And you notice how we don't do that very often. Maybe just taking the time out of a busy day to do that is really effective and important. Thank you. That was nice. Thanks, Kirsty. Okay. So just quickly. Okay. Annette was saying that she felt rested, and Susan said my back cracked when I breathed, and that must have felt like you released or popped something out that just was really stuck in there. So that's awesome that happened. Thanks, Susan, for sharing. So just very quickly, I'm not sure where everybody is on their practice with mindfulness. If you have a practice that has started, or if you're deeply into it, or this is brand new. So I kind of wanted to cover just a general basis with everybody so we're on the same page after today. So what is mindfulness? So simply put, mindfulness is the awareness of the present moment. It's the awareness of the present moment without judgment. Whatever is happening in and around us, we just observe, become aware of it, and we try to deflect any judgment from it. Oftentimes when we're thinking about situations from the past or situations of the unknown future, we start to experience either depression and grief if it's happened in the past, or we start to experience anxiety because there's a lot going on, we don't know, there's a lot of uncertainties, and we tend to go into the mindset of anxiousness. And so when we're caught either in the past or in the future, we are far from the present moment experience. It's really difficult on with what's going on right now. So I'll give you an example. If your child is having a conversation with you, or your spouse or coworker telling you about something in this present moment, you may realize that in a moment your mind drifted off somewhere else. And I oftentimes look at Eliana and I'm like, sorry, what did you say? And so I realized that in that moment I drifted. Or a common argument that I hear from a lot of couples, they say, well, you know, I told you that and he never listens to me. And then they get into a tiff. Well, you never said that. Yeah, I did. You know, you never said that. Yeah, I did. And so it's because our mind drifted and we were not really engaged in that conversation in that present moment. And looking at COVID, of course, we realize that we've been in the situation for a really long time. And there's, you know, we really don't know when we're going to go back to living normal. When is all this going to be past us, and when can we move forward with living back into normal living? And so the anxiety of that takes a lot of space in our mind. So when we practice mindfulness and we really train, and rather retrain our brain to start beginning to focus on the present moment, there's a lot of benefits that can come from that. It helps to, first of all, reduce stress and anxiety, because like I said, when we talk about stress, we're talking about, you know, a situation may be arising. We might be thinking of a worst case, what if situation. We don't know what the future unholds. We're really stuck in the past, and we're carrying a lot of anger and resentment about past situations, and we really can't focus on the now. When we begin to focus more using mindfulness, we improve the focus attention of the information that is being presented to us. And as a result, when we're able to focus better on the information or situation that is unfolding in the present moment experience, we're able to retain that information. And so that also helps our memory a lot. A lot of times when we aren't focused, when we're in class, when we're learning something, when we're taking in information, when we're part of a conversation, we simply forget what was imparted to us in that moment. So practicing mindfulness really helps with the attention and the retention of information. When we're mindful, we also are able to really connect with the emotional experiences that arise in the present moment. And when those emotional experiences, especially the challenging ones, when they arise, we can better put ourselves in a place where we can make decisions to regulate the emotions more effectively. When we're not being mindful, we tend to be more reactive and more rash. And so a lot of times we might get super angry or snappy or start judging situations. And we might notice that in our bodies, we feel really tense and tight. We might start yelling, our voice might start shaking. All of these situations happen when we are not being mindfully present. We tend to react more quickly to trigger situations. They could be the most minimal trigger situation. It could be something as simple as somebody cutting you off in traffic. It could be something as simple as standing in a long grocery line. These are common triggers where we're just constantly on autopilot and we just want to be doing, and the ability to stay and remain in the state of being becomes very, very difficult. So when we are able to identify what are the triggers in our daily life that cause us to have more reactive reactive behavioral patterns, the mindfulness tool puts us in check. It helps us engage with the brain in such a way that instead of snapping into our autopilot reactive mode, we're actually able to take a step back, assess the temptation of going into reactive mode, and then saying, oh, if I just breathe 5 breaths, maybe I won't react as quickly. Okay, so very quickly again, it helps reduce experiences of stress and anxiety. It helps us improve and focus our attention so that we can retain information more effectively. We can remember things more effectively. It helps us understand and regulate our emotions more effectively. And it helps us identify better what our daily triggers are and shift from reactive behaviors to more responsive behaviors. Okay. And let me know if you all have any questions. Otherwise, I will just move on. Okay. I want to do just a very quick overview of the brain. I'm not a neuroscientist by any means at all, but I feel this explanation is very effective because in essence, it helps us understand how in control of the brain we can choose to be. Because this mindfulness practice is very hands-on and it requires practice, and in doing the practice, we're actually hardwiring the brain, because the brain has been so hardwired to function a certain way. And what we want to do is, it's almost like if you imagine that you are a computer system, a CPU, and within your CPU, there's all this hardwiring. And what we want to do now is we want to identify how hard the wiring has been put in place for such a long time that it has caused us to be on autopilot so often. And what we want to do is whatever autopilot triggers don't work for us anymore and we don't like the outcome of our reactivity, we want to just simply unplug those. So when we talk about the brain, I just want to cover 3 areas. And I love teaching this to kids because it really sinks in. And so this would be a really cool conversation for you to have with kids as well, because it's a great practice to start at home with your families as well. So the amygdala, otherwise known as the jumpy superhero. The jumpy superhero is always trying to protect us at all costs, okay? This is the part of the brain that is responsible for your fight, flight, or freeze mode, okay? So I love to tell kids and my clients that if I'm in a room, if we're all in a room right now during the DAGS forum and a tiger walks through the room, we're all gonna panic and freak out, right? And I like to say also that if a cockroach walks through the room, I'm probably gonna have the exact same reaction as I would with a tiger. But the cockroach and tiger are very different scenarios, and I don't necessarily have to act that way when a cockroach walks through the room. So, but because I go into that fight flight mode when I see a cockroach, I need to tell my brain, hey, this is not a tiger situation. And so the situations that cause your autopilot to jump into that fight, flight, or freeze mode, we want to be able to take that back and be able to now empower the prefrontal cortex, which is actually the smart part of the brain, which helps us make balanced choices. So when we identify a situation and we're like, okay, this is a situation, but we can take a step back and we can assess and evaluate the situation more rationally and decide what are the best steps to take now for a better outcome. So that's the responsibility of the prefrontal cortex. The hippocampus stores and recalls memories. If your amygdala is constantly in fight, flight, or freeze mode, it's not going to be able to retain the information. And if you recall, we talked about the benefits of mindfulness. The hippocampus wants to be able to store in information, to be able to use that information that we've stored in the memory and bring it back at a later time when we know that it's applicable. But if we are constantly in that jumpy hero state, if we're constantly activating the amygdala, we're not going to be able to effectively make those decisions. We're not going to be able to effectively retain the information. And so mindfulness really helps to be able to identify when we need to act, when we need to respond, when we need to react. So that's just a brief overview on the parts of the brain. And again, we're talking about the hardwiring. So if we're feeling like we're constantly hardwired for reactive, then that means that the amygdala is working overtime. We need to tell the amygdala basically to chill out, okay? The question from Kimberly is, could we get a copy of the information being presented? And yes, absolutely, I'm happy to share that with you all. So I want this part, I want to hear from you all now in terms of what I'm calling the COVID-19 crisis. And this is, you know, kind of a blanket statement when I talk about the COVID-19 crisis. But I want to hear from you all, like, what are some of the emotional experiences you've gone through since, you know, pretty much the start of the year? How has COVID affected you and your families? What are some emotional words you could use to describe some of the experiences that you have gone through? You just go ahead and type it in the chat box. Mentally exhausting, Heather says and shares. Thank you. Not sleeping as well. Okay. Tired all the time, uncertainty. Lots of anxiety dreams. Unsettled. Yeah. There's just so much we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen next. And we're constantly bombarded with all kinds of information on the media, social media, on the TV. Everywhere we look, there's just a bombardment of this information that's just coming in. Mourning the loss of dreams I had for once my baby was born. She was born in July. Congratulations, Katie. And you know, so this is really good stuff. Please continue to keep this coming. I'm continuously looking at the chat window as well, because I think all this feedback is really great. Because I want us to I'm going to be taking us through some experiences for meditation. I now am more aware of my medical hex and fearful to follow medical precautions. Annette, thanks Annette for sharing. Yeah. It's been crazy, and the more we are exposed to the information, the more worst case scenarios develop. And that causes the anxiety. And you're talking about the stress, and you're talking about the depletion of the body, and you're talking about how tired you constantly feel. It's because that mind is constantly moving. Imagine a hamster's wheel constantly running. Well, what are the thoughts that are running in our mind? So let's just go on to this next slide. And here were some emotional words that I wanted to put there, and you all can probably relate to much of these experiences. Just feeling irritated, frustrated, disgruntled, agitated, angry, distant, helpless, nervous, anxious, lonely. The social isolation is terrible. Frightened, exhausted, fatigued, bored, uncomfortable, withdrawn, restless, and unsteady. Now, all of these emotional words, I actually have pulled them from the Center for Nonviolent Communication, sorry. There's the website link will be in the next few slides or so. And so I would invite you guys to either take a picture, or you're going to end up with the slides anyway. It's a really good site to be able to identify specific emotional words that you want to be able to identify with, so that when an emotional experience is occurring, you can identify and say, yes, this is how I'm feeling. This is how I'm feeling. Because quite often our body is speaking to us. That could be, for example, in the case of, you know, somebody said, I think Karisti said, you know, you feel tired all the time. If you feel like your body is drained, if you just feel like you have tension and stress and tightness all here. I mean, I know I hold it all over here. You know, migraine headaches might be a big one for people as well. But these physical sensations that come up in the body are all a response to, you know, what is being felt emotionally. And so I'm going to go to the next slide. You know, and just kind of throwing out the uncertainties of life that we have anyway, you know, COVID plus, right? What are the other uncertainties in our life? Relationships, jobs, finances, education. You know, I'm asking, what are some other areas of your life that you feel uncertain about right now? The point is that whether it's COVID, or whether it's a job that you just lost because of COVID, or whether you just got recently diagnosed with, you know, a disease, or, you know, terminal illness, or whatever the case may be, we constantly are facing uncertainties in our life. And so how do we deal with that, right? It's one thing after the other. And I'm open and comfortable to share this. And this is my personal journey, and I put health there because a month ago I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So that was like another uncertainty, like as if, you know, 2020 hasn't presented us with enough uncertainties. Well, then, you know, I have this new diagnosis. And so how do we, you know, how do we show up in the world with all of this? So what I want to go back, and I just want to kind of plant the seed, is the what if syndrome. And I think somebody had mentioned about the baby, right? And so mourning the loss of dreams I had for once my baby was born. Yeah, I mean, you had all these dreams, Katie, and all these great plans, and now they're kind of stopped or are not happening. So when we think of COVID, or when we think about job loss, or when we think about relationship breakups, or we think about health diagnosis or finances or education, and we think about what if, and this is what I want to invite you all to do right now. We're going to go back into the body, into the space of stillness. And so let me go ahead and just invite you all to lay your hands again on your lap and bring your eyes to a close. And if I just invite into this space the words, what if? I want you to relate these words, what if, to the uncertainty that you are experiencing in your life in this present moment. Whether it's COVID, whether it's a relationship, or your health, or finances. I want you to invite what if. And then I'm going to leave that statement open for you to contemplate. What if? Allow your mind to guide you in this moment. I want you to follow your mind and your thoughts in this moment, to become curious about the story or narrative that follows the words, what if? Imagine that you're watching a movie of what if. Become really curious about this film. How is your film unfolding for you in your mind right now? What if? As you're watching this movie, relate to the narrative. And notice how that narrative that's created in the mind also translates into the body, into the physical body, coming up as sensations perhaps. Is there tightness? Is there heaviness? Or perhaps there's lightness and weightlessness. Notice the physical sensations in the body. You may also notice some emotions arising, perhaps some words that you saw earlier. Feel confused or angry, irritated, perhaps nervous. What is the narrative of your story? And how does it show up? Not just in the mind, but through your emotions, and in the physical body through sensations. Remember, there's no right or wrong, there's no judgment, simply awareness, awareness of this narrative. Allow yourself to just be with it in this moment and acknowledge that this is a thing. This is here with you right now, and that's okay. And now that you know about the narrative, you've become familiar with it. You know what the story looks like. You know how you tell it. You're familiar with the emotions that it brings up. And you know and experience the physical sensations in the body and how it shows up in the body. This is great. This is great that you've allowed yourself to meet it in this way. And now what we're going to do is just simply an invite that inhale through the nose. Exhale slowly and deeply out through the mouth. And see if you take a few more deep inhales through the nose, exhaling out through the mouth. See if your breath can actually allow you to slowly detach from that. Create some soft space between that narrative, the emotions, physical sensations in the body, just by simply using your breath intentionally. The more you inhale and exhale, the more space you create. Imagine as if you're just creating a gradual distance, getting further away from it. I'm going to invite you slowly to come back into your body at this time. You're just slowly beginning to open your eyes once again. And just in a few short words, as you return back, I'm curious to know if you were to summarize for me your what if situation. Did your mind go to a what if worst case scenario or a what if best case scenario? You can just type worst case. You can give me some few short details. Alex says worst case. Alicia won the lottery. Please share. What if I won the lottery? It's a best case. Keep typing in your responses. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's simply just an invitation to observe where the mind goes. Where does our autopilot go? And how many of us, Renata says worse, right? How often in our minds do we get tricked into visualizing, preparing, being in that worst case scenario? Best case, Kimberly. What if everyone quit thinking about their own hardship and began thinking of how they can enhance someone else's life? Imagine how wonderful the world would become. Imagine that. And doesn't it start with just that one thought, followed by that one action, right? And then just feeling so good about that. Just that shift, just the observation is where the mindfulness starts, is to bring awareness to where and how am I perceiving this present moment right here, right now. I think using the uncertainties of life, especially right now, and inviting a practice every morning to visualize in our mind's eye how we would like the day to unfold. And if the autopilot goes into the worst case scenario, inviting a gentle invitation to slowly shift. The awareness comes first before we can begin to shift. First, we have to know basically where our baseline is. If our baseline consistently is rooted in thinking, the autopilot is constant in thinking the worst case scenario, well, we just want to become aware of it because that is a pattern the brain has become so accustomed to. And that's okay. That happens to the large majority of us. So that hardwiring, then if you identify that to be something which is your autopilot, well, just imagine yourself just pull that out. Pull that hardwiring, like that doesn't work for me anymore. Yeah, go ahead and travel to Ghana. Catherine says, our inevitable mortality and the beautiful gift of now. Absolutely. Just waking up in the morning, every morning with pure gratitude that we're up, we're awake, we are here, we have our breath. So with that, what I was trying to do is when we're practicing mindfulness, it's a threefold process. So we're going to look at the mental, emotional, and physical sensations. So the mental is going to be the autopilot thought. We've engaged a large majority of our life in the worst case scenario. I am now obsessed with the best case scenario. Even if I am facing a particular situation, it's like, oh, why is this happening for me? Mindfulness is also very well practiced when you begin to shift and change the language. Rather than saying, oh my gosh, I was supposed to be at this meeting and now I have a flat tire. Why does this always happen to me? Becoming curious. Why is this happening for me? Play detective and have fun with the practice. Simple words like shifting 2 to 4 will change your entire experience in that moment. So the mental autopilot, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me? When you imagine something happening to you, imagine what happens in the physical body. There's tension, there's stress, there's tightness, there's pain, there's discomfort, there's anxiety, there's fast heartbeat, right? If you are gonna have a fast heartbeat, I would much rather you all have a fast heartbeat, not because you're feeling anxious, but because you're feeling excited. The physiological shift in the body, what the physiological expression in the body is the same, a fast heartbeat, but make it about being excited rather than being nervous or scared or worried or projecting fear. And then also notice the emotions, because the emotions are really going to communicate to you what is going on. So your mental, physical, and emotional, don't separate them. When you're using mindfulness, become an observer of all three of them. So again, very quickly, mental autopilot, what if? Worst case scenario, you want to shift that, but bring awareness to that worst case scenario first. Notice what it does to the physical sensations in your body and the emotions that arise. Most of the time when we are going into the autopilot, we're focusing more on the stories and narratives that have been created in the mind rather than the actual facts, right? So ask yourself a simple question. If you have a thought, if a thought arises and you're in observation of that thought and you start to feel uncomfortable, you start to feel anxious, you start to feel that anxiety, the body starts behaving in a certain way through physiological reactions. Well, ask, am I reacting to a situation that is for a fact, Or has my mind jumped into autopilot and created a worst case scenario, and so now the entirety of my being is focused on that story? So when you ask the simple question, is it true? I mean, most of the time, we don't even know if it's true, but we factualize what the story is. Does that make sense? Right? So shift back and notice that's an autopilot. Every time I do that, I realize that it's a story that I'm reacting to. It's a story that I'm creating a worst case scenario to. Move it back to a fact. If we don't know, you know, job cuts are happening because of COVID. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. If I lose my job, then and it starts to spiral, this dominoes effect of like the worst case scenario. Well, okay, job cuts may be happening, but what if I lose my job? Okay, but that's a worst case scenario, right? So let's bring our attention back to right now. Right now, you still have a job. We tend to have a lot of judgment based on when things are not met our way. When things don't go our way, we judge the situation. Again, become curious about it. You know, rather than judging it, become curious and be super. The more creative and fun this is, the practice, the more you will enjoy the practice. This doesn't need to be an extra thing to do on your plate. It needs to be something that a part of your being. So we're shifting the way we show up in our everyday life. Okay. I talked about the physical autopilot, so I'm not going to go through it again. It's just what happens in the physical body: tightness, heaviness, pain, discomfort, all of that. Okay, these are all physiological experiences that occur in the body. And then the emotional state, right, is when we went through those emotional words, and I'm going to provide you with a list of emotional words that you can use in your daily practice to identify, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Most of the time, by the way, when we think that we're expressing emotional words, we aren't really. I'll give you an example. If I get into an argument with a friend or my son, and I say, you know what, I feel really disappointed right now. Just because we stuck in the word feel, I feel really disappointed right now, it's not an emotional word. When we are disappointed with a particular situation or outcome, it's really just a layer of judgment. Can you see that? I feel disappointed. Elian, I feel disappointed that you were really noisy because I was on my call with DAGS and you were really loud. I feel really disappointed in you. Well, that's a judgment, right? So using that list, and I'm going to provide that list when I provide the, and you'll see the link as well, and I'll send you the attachment as well, to really go through those emotional words, because they're really important. Number one, in identifying the emotions that you're currently going through yourself. And two, if you feel that you need to articulate that in a conversation with somebody when your needs have not been met, what kind of emotions came up for you in that moment? It's a more effective way of communicating emotions. Alicia, thank you so much for joining, and go through the presentation whenever you can. So we did that contemplative meditation. Okay. Does anybody want to share a little bit more about their experience? We can also unmute you if you want to be unmuted, just so you can kind of share where the mind started off, where it went, where it wandered off. What did you notice in your physical body, or, you know, what was the narrative in the mind? What are the emotions that came up? You can just raise your hand or put comments. Here's some common reactionary behaviors. I just thought this was kind of fun and funny for moms, especially. Different trigger situations in our everyday life, right? So what we want to do is we want to take a simple mindfulness practice and go from shifting when we come to an awareness that we're just getting tempted to snap into our autopilot, and identifying the temptation to snap into the autopilot, and then mindfully shifting, using a mindfulness technique that would be of your choice, which I'll go through, and just take that moment to ground yourself and to shift from reactive to responsive. So here are a few that I love and that you can do yourself. And I encourage you to share this with your friends and family. The first one is a 10 breath cycle. The way you can do that is either laying down during bedtime. If you have trouble sleeping, for instance, go ahead and just do this laying down. It will help ground you. It will help calm you down so that you have a better time falling asleep. You can also start your morning with it. And what you basically want to do is you want to count 10 breath cycles. So each breath cycle is an inhale followed by an exhale. So what we did during the meditations, I asked you to invite a deep inhale through the nose and exhale out through the mouth. I like to call that an intentional breath because we don't always breathe like that. Usually we're breathing just by default. It's just happening and flowing naturally. That's the natural flow. But when you invite the inhale followed by the exhale, that's what I call the intentional breath. So you can observe your breath by simply sitting still and just counting your breath. One inhale naturally, followed by natural exhale. And count that on your fingertips, right? You know that up the 3 sections, 1 to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So until you get to here, just count 10 breath cycles. Start your day after that. And observe during the 10 breath cycle, if you get distracted, you might hear kids running around outside, or you might notice the phone ringing or whatever, but just kind of notice if the mind deflects from the focus of the breath and is able to come back. If it deflects, no problem. Just bring awareness to the deflection and then bring the attention back. Notice what the distraction was. Bang sound, door, voices, and then bring the attention back. The starfish breathing is fun. Kids love this as well. You can do this with your kids. And it's basically holding your hand out, okay? And you can practice this right now as you're sitting there. Hold your hand out. And with one hand, doesn't matter right or left, hold it out. And with the other one, I call the tracing finger. You're going to start at the root of your thumb, and you're going to trace going up. And as you go up, you breathe in. Then breathe out. Go up, breathe in. Come down, breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. You've already done 5 breath cycles just with your first hand. Move to the second hand and you do another 5, and you've done another 10 breath cycle. So that's another way of getting in your 10 breath cycles. The other fun one is called the Peace Begins With Me mantra. These are finger mudras. You connect the thumb to each finger and you move over to each finger. So when you start with the first, you chant, peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. So you can tell your kids, hey guys, let's go, let's crisscross applesauce. Let's settle our hands on our lap and let's go, peace begins with me. If mommy's feeling stressed, hey, you know what? Elian, mommy's feeling a little stressed. I'm just gonna take 5 minutes. I'm gonna go and do my peace begins with me. I want you all to be able to communicate when you are struggling, when difficult emotions are coming up, and use particular styles of language to communicate what you are noticing is coming up for you in the present moment. I'm noticing anger coming up. Rather than saying, I am angry, there's a huge difference between I am angry because you have attached to the emotion, you have attached to the experience, you have made that your own. Rather than saying, I am angry, I am noticing anger coming up. I'm noticing how when anger comes up, my heart starts beating, my hands start shaking, my voice starts getting louder. When you begin to communicate in this way with people around you, you are bringing an awareness to the experience of this present moment, but you are not an angry person. I am not angry. I am noticing anger arise in this moment. So remember, we talked about creating a space, that gentle space between what is unfolding and you. You can observe it like a movie. Does that make sense? Please, if you have any questions, just get our attention. Wave your hand or make a comment on the chat box. Visualizing my happy place. Somebody went to Africa. Who was that? Was it Nigeria? No, Ghana. Annette went to Ghana and during this meeting. And I hope you had a wonderful trip to Ghana. Visualize your happy place. We can't go to the beach right now, but we can certainly visualize a beach. So wherever you want to go, just be there. Create your happy space. Tell your kids to create a happy space. If they're feeling sad or angry or frustrated or not safe or worried, well, be like, hey, let's go into our happy place. Should we go there for 5 minutes, wherever that is? Let's go into our happy place. So visualize your happy place and allow that happy place to help you feel calm and relaxed. You can do that anytime that you want. Belly breathing. This is also another great one. You can do this when you're sleeping. Have your belly on one on your heart, one on your belly, and just observe the rise and fall as you breathe in and out of your hands on your belly. You'll be able to feel your heartbeat as well. Notice how that heart is beating. Is it fast or slow? And just notice the breath get calmer and more relaxed as you do. Great thing to do when you're trying to sleep at night. I've had a lot of people tell me this is very effective. Okay. So we talked about the reactions and responses. Know that your amygdala, the jumpy superhero, is working overtime if you're constantly reactive. You want to kick back and allow your prefrontal cortex to become empowered if you want to come from a place of more responsiveness. Creating a space between the trigger and our choice of action helps us to make better choices for optimal outcomes. Okay. If somebody sends you a text message, for example, and it triggers you, and you're so mad, well, what is our immediate response? We need to immediately respond and tell this person how we feel. Or we can put the phone down and create that space, and then find we may not have to respond to them at all, or when we do, it's going to come from a more responsive place. I always enjoy having an accountability partner for my practice. That could be a spouse, a partner, your child, you know, whoever it is, somebody on the Zoom call today, somebody at your workplace, but have an accountability partner so that you can kind of report back to them as to how your practice is unfolding. What are some of your struggles? What has worked? What is not working? You can talk to them about your emotions. What is coming up? What are some of the things that trigger you? I actually have accountability worksheets that you can use. I am absolutely more than happy to send those over to you so you can check those out. But you can just, you know, take a log of what are some of your common daily triggers. It could be traffic, long grocery lines, you know, whatever it is. Identify what your triggers are and identify what your common autopilot reactions are to those triggers. And then once you become familiar with them, they no longer have to be a regulated pattern of autopilot. You can begin to shift that. As soon as it happens, you're going to shift into becoming more mindful and being more responsive. I don't know what we're like with time. I know that it's 8 minutes past the hour. If we need to address, I would love to address questions more. I can always send you this video and you all can watch the video at your own time.
There is time for the video if you'd like.
Okay, perfect. So let me go ahead and play that quickly. I don't know why the sound's not coming on. Would that be something on my end? Thanks.
Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
And what is it all about? Well, we say one must live. It's necessary to survive. You know, you really must go on. It's your duty. We think, you know, it's part of our Western philosophy, that we think we have a drive to survive, that we must go on living. Because some big daddy said to us, you gotta go on living, see? And you better make it or else. There really is no necessity to go on living. The fear of death is completely absurd. Because if you're dead, you've got nothing to worry about. So you'll be all right. So in the same way, this thing here, this plant, I'm quite sure it doesn't say to itself, you ought to go on living. You've got an instinct to survive, which is something other than yourself and which you have to obey. Now you see, living, like this plant, is something spontaneous. In Chinese, the word for nature is zhiran, which means that which happens of itself, not under any control of an outside boss. And so you stop this spontaneous flowering of nature cold if you tell it you must do it. It's like saying to someone, you must love me. That's ridiculous. If I were to ask my wife, darling, do you really love me? And she says, I am trying my best to do so. That's not the answer I want. I want her to say, I can't help loving you. I love you so much, I could eat you. And that's what the plant feels in growing. It doesn't feel that it must grow. It's not under orders. It's not a military chain of command. It does this spontaneously. So that when you try to command the spontaneous process, you stop it.
What you are basically, deep, deep down, far, far in, is simply the fabric and structure of existence itself. Reality itself is gorgeous. It is the plenum, the fullness of total joy. Wow-wee. And all those stars, if you look out in the sky, as a firework display like you see on the 4th of July, which is a great occasion for celebration. The universe is a celebration. It is a fireworks show to celebrate that existence is. Wow-wee.
This is the real secret of life. To be completely engaged with what you're doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize that this is play.
Awesome. That quote that Alan just shared, and I have that, I believe, on my next slide, is the premise of my mindfulness practice. And that's the quote, "This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it is play." And so this is an open invitation for all of you to, you know, receive every present moment with curiosity and with awareness, whatever it is that is going on for you right now. It might be not in alignment with what you had planned or what you had hoped for. but especially during times of uncertainty, because let's just face it, before COVID, times were still uncertain. We did not know for certain that we were going to wake up the following morning, or that we were going to make it for our meeting, or that we were going to make it in time for whatever. But the point is, we are focusing so hard on this worldwide epidemic as if everything else before in our lives was certain. And the truth is, it isn't. And so the best invitation that I can give you all is to savor and cherish every present moment. And whatever you do in this moment, visualize the very best outcome of whatever it is that you're intending. So don't stop dreaming about your children's future and all the plans that you had and going on holiday. Continue to visualize that. You may not be sitting on a plane in this moment, but you will attract in your life what you continuously think about. And so let that not be stress, and let that not be worry, and just enjoy every moment. I am open to any questions quickly if anybody wants to ask them. You will again be getting copies of the slides, and in the email that I share with Kirsty, what she'll then, I guess, send you all out the slides or post it somewhere. I'll also share my contact information so you all know how to contact me. I can also quickly type it in the chat box.
Awesome, great. Thank you so much. It doesn't look like we have any additional questions. So appreciate you coming and speaking for us today. It was a great presentation. I feel more relaxed and better than when I arrived here today. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Remind everyone to register for the Fall Forum. It is our program for October, which is our next event. And want to thank our committee members, Susan Rogers, our Vice President, and Peggy Pappert, our Forum Chair. And then I'm Kathleen Warshawski. And we also want to thank our sponsors and our members and the DAGS board for all the work that they've done this year. So thank you so much, and we'll see you at the forum.